rules and stuff for last year.
Good evening. As you all are aware, we recently lost one of our other council members and one of our long-term firefighters. Roger Bibby is not with us any longer, but with us this evening is Tim Willard, who's going to say a few words about Roger. So, Tim, if you would, please.
I'm standing in for Chief Scholl. He's out of town, and he asked me to deliver this. And he wrote up a little thing about Roger, which is pretty fitting for who he was. Retired Deputy Chief Roger Bibby passed away September 6, 2024. He joined the fire department December 4th, 1975, and took honorary membership September 30th, 2002. He had 27 years of active service with the fire department and 22 years on the honorary membership, which with the total years of service would be 49 years. Roger also served with the city council from January 1st, 2000 to the present day. Chief Bibby was a great leader for the fire department. He was very organized. His strategies on the fire scene were very, very good. He was very good in those type of roles with the fire department. Also, he was the liaison for the city council for the fire department. He was very instrumental with maintaining and getting equipment for the fire department with our apparatus, the fire trucks, gear, everything it takes to run a fire department. People don't realize the money and the effort and the stuff that it takes to run a fire department because we're regulated by federal law to maintain a certain degree of stuff. He was very good at that, and he always made sure that we had what we needed to serve the citizens of Vienna. Roger also served as a paramedic for St. Joe, which is where he started his public servant. And he was a paramedic. He held many state and county positions in the EMS field. Roger was a personal friend of mine. He was also a great friend of the fire department, and he will be truly missed by our department. Thank you.
Would you please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance?
Almighty God, as we gather this evening, we are here to do the work of the city. We are working as unto you and not unto men. Give us wisdom, give us discernment in the decisions that are before us. Give us a spirit of cooperation and of unity. Thank you for all those who are present. And we ask this in Jesus' name.
Amen. Councilman Chuck Knopfsinger, if you would, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for September the 12th, 2024. Let the record reflect that all members of council are present. Having a quorum, we will proceed. We have 3 people that have signed up to speak on the public forum this evening, and so we will start this evening with Kim Williams.
Good evening. My name is Kim Williams, 801 49th Street. And I have a little bit of good news, but I am going to read it so I don't skip over anything. I'm deeply committed to transparency and accountability. I'm also deeply committed to ensuring that the development of Spencer's Landing and Vienna's other riverfront properties include input from the community. In July, the City of Vienna entered into a contract with the Thrasher Group for Spencer's Landing Master Plan Project. This project included 4 parcels of property. The contract with the Thrasher Group included the establishment of a steering committee to work closely with the Thrasher Group in developing Spencer's Landing. According to the contract, the steering committee would be involved in each planning step of the project. Understanding the importance of the role of the steering committee, Councilman Mancuso and I sponsored a resolution to create a steering committee as envisioned in the Thrasher contract. According to the Thrasher Group's contract, the steering committee was meant to have a significant role in the project. Unfortunately, the resolution to create the steering committee failed, with Mayor Rapp, Councilman Leach, and Recorder Elam voting against forming the steering committee. Following the failure to create the steering committee, the mayor took his own action and appointed 15 people he selected to the steering committee. Then on the August 22nd council meeting, the mayor indicated that the committee's role would be limited to developing a survey questionnaire. However, the contract with Thrasher outlines the steering committee's role, which has a significant influence and discretion on the final recreational features of Spencer's Landing. The steering committee's role is not limited to just developing the questionnaire, as the mayor suggested in August. Because of the lack of transparency around the development of Spencer's Landing project, I sought an advisory opinion from the West Virginia Ethics Commission regarding the Open Meetings Act and whether it applies to the steering committee's work with Thrasher. On September 5th, the West Virginia Ethics Commission gave their advisory opinion. After considering the facts, the committee found that since Vienna City Council is delegating authority to the steering committee to work with a city-hired consultant to make recommendations to the city council on policy or administration, including initial, revised, and proposed designs and features of the Spencer's Landing project, then the steering committee is a governing body under the Open Meetings Act and subject to properly noticed public meetings. Now, given the West Virginia Ethics Commission's advisory opinion and the significant role of the steering committee, I plan to propose a future resolution for the steering committee's formation. The formation of the steering committee should be similar to Vienna's other boards, ensuring that the committee members are appointed by a vote of council. My actions with respect to the advisory opinion I sought from the West Virginia Ethics Commission reflects my commitment to uphold democratic principles and to ensure the community's voice is integral to the development of our riverfront properties. It is essential that such committees operate transparently to maintain public trust and to align the final project with the community's vision. I would like to thank a lot of people in the community who reached out to me, and I'd specifically like to thank Tammy Rhodes, who highlighted state code and helped me prepare the documents for the West Virginia Ethics Commission. So the West Virginia Ethics Commission advisory opinion and all documents will be posted later tonight on my Facebook page and my website for public review. Thank you.
Mr. Williams, have you submitted those to our city attorney?
Yes, sir, I did. As soon as I got them, I submitted them.
The entire opinion, ma'am?
Yeah.
Including your request?
Yes. I forwarded the whole entire email to the city attorney.
Including your request?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any more?
Tony Morrison, 1210 15th Street, Mayor Council. Thank you for the opportunity. Tonight I kind of wanted to talk about some stuff that's really a statewide issue, but I think it's kind of we're starting to see it at home too. Whenever I was in elementary school here at Neal School, the teachers told us that we didn't have to say God anymore in our pledge. And being like a fourth or fifth grader or whatever it was kind of like a joke, like, oh, I'm not going to say it. Are you going to say it? It wasn't a requirement. Whenever we said the Pledge of Allegiance, we no longer had to say God. And you can also see kind of back before that, they quit with the prayers in school. And so you have a whole generation now of kids from, the late 90s and even the early 90s all the way up until now, who have grown up with this opinion that there is no such thing as God. We saw an ape turning into a man on the wall. And as a result of that, as a result of kids going to school and believing that there is no God, we now are starting to see these school shootings. And I know they're not new, but they are becoming more and more prevalent. A lot of us have heard about the Georgia shooting. I don't know. We've been pretty blessed to not have anything like that happen here in our hometown. But I'm sure a lot of us have heard about the threat that was made at Jackson Middle School. There was a threat made at Blennerhassett Middle School. There was a threat made at Preston. There has been over 45 threats made in this state. So much so that our governor, Justice, is now starting a committee, an agency to investigate, these attacks. And guys, why am I talking about this? Is because if you can't see that we have an issue with our teen population right now, if that doesn't put a burden on your heart, then I question your loyalty to the state, the loyalty to this country. Guys, there's a real problem right now. There's a real problem in our city, in our county, in our state, in our country. And it starts with us individually, each of us. We can't depend on our city government to make changes. We can't depend on our county. We can't depend on our state. We can't depend on our national government to make changes. It's the humans. The humans that live here have to make the changes. It starts with each of us. That's all I got. Thanks.
Jim Leach.
First, just in following what Tony said, I think
Jim, I'm sorry. Can you speak in the mic?
one of the needs, that we're seeing on the federal, state, and local level involves childcare. We've had some conversations about some of the uses of the opioid settlements. I think we do have a real opportunity, and I think that Tony's remarks are well taken for all of us, that it's not just a government issue. It's an issue for all of us. We have a lot of young families who really struggle to provide the type of care and the type of attention to these children. Some of us are old enough to remember what latchkey kids were. Okay, they still exist. So I just wanted to echo that, but that's not my reason for standing up today. I want to stand up for Roger Bibby. In the 2 terms that I've been on city council, I would have to say that Roger was the mentor, was the man who I looked to with the most respect in terms of, before delivering comments, he would think them out. Really, I don't even remember, him taking a negative or any type of a toxic tone on any issue, even those that he disagreed with. And I think that it's just, I was looking forward to this other term with him. I spoke with him about running again, and certainly supported, his intention to do so. And so I think that my comment just would be that as we move forward, we're coming into this next term of city council, that we remember the example that Roger set for all of us. And, the spirit of cooperation, the thought out, I will forever quote his comment about, the citizens don't always give a flippity flip about what we're here talking about in council chambers as long as their toilets flush and their water runs. And there's something to be said for that. So again, I just want to give a shout out to Roger. Godspeed to you, Roger. I'm sure you're in a great place and we will miss you.
I will like one comment.
No, ma'am. Ma'am, I said I'm sorry, no. Okay. The minutes from the special council meeting on August 27, 2024 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? And no objections, then the minutes will stand approved as posted. Report of the treasurer, Councilman Leach.
Reconciliation funds for the City of Vienna dated September 9th, 2024, have been presented by our finance director. I reviewed those. The accounts appear in order, and the city is financially sound.
All right, thank you. This evening, before we start with our regular agenda, we have a proclamation. This is a proclamation for Constitution Week. Whereas September the 17th, 2024 marks the 237th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September the 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Randall C. Rapp, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Vienna, West Virginia, do hereby proclaim the week of September the 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through the guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Vienna, West Virginia, to be affixed on the 12th day of September of the year of our Lord, 2024. The Constitution is the guideline for everything that we do in this country, and it is a very sacred document, which I hope we all regard with the care that it needs. First item on our agenda this evening is an update from the Economic Development Director of the Wood County Development Authority, Lindsay Pearsall.
It's hard to follow the Constitution, but I'll try. Good evening. I wanted to give an update on the Wood County Economic Development and the City of Vienna's economic development efforts. Part of what I'm going to talk about tonight is just a little bit of an educational piece for both council and residents who are interested. But a lot of our focus the last couple of months has been on the West Virginia University at Parkersburg's transformation of the former Ohio Valley University campus. For those of you that aren't aware, the campus sits on approximately 200 acres. It's in the city of Vienna. So we are working with WVUP to work on the enhancements to the school. So one thing that we did in our office is we applied for and received a federal earmark grant from last year's federal earmarks that will pay for the replacement of all the windows and doors at the former OVU campus, now the ITC. We are working through HUD for those dollars. If anyone, I know Tony Tiano's in here somewhere, when you work through the federal granting process, it is a very slow process. So what we're doing right now is we're working through the paperwork. The doors will take 32 weeks to come in. The windows will take 10 weeks to come in, and then those will start to be installed. So there are obviously a lot of subsequent projects that those two things have to go in first before other things can happen. So we've been trying to stay on top of that quite a bit. I know Dr. Jackson was here maybe 2 months ago to give you an update, but the goal and the plan right now is that classes will start in the fall of 2025. So they're on a pretty tight timeline to get things going. Second to that, the land that surrounds the campus was owned by Ohio Valley University. Now it's owned by the West Virginia University at Parkersburg Foundation. And our office is working with Pickering Associates, the engineering firm, to do highest and best use for that property. The plan for right now is to do residential on those parcels. So we're still in drafting phases, but we anticipate that you could get approximately 100 housing parcels around the former campus. So we're looking at that. What's so time intensive is obviously the infrastructure is not in place currently to reach 100 houses up there. So we're working with Craig Metz at the Vienna Utility Board to make sure what we need to do for water and sewers there. Right now, we're working through a plan to find a second form of ingress and egress up to the campus. The school would like a bike path to be part of that plan so students who bike can get to school, and so the Mid-Ohio Valley Transit Authority can get better access up to the school property. So those are things that we've been working on as it pertains to that campus. And we've already had people approach us about wanting, from word of mouth, they've heard that that's the plan on housing developments. We are not currently in a spot that we're going to sell any property around the campus right now. We're working through all of the utility phases and the engineering plans. And then once that's in place, we will go before the WVUP Foundation Board and the WVUP Board and get their blessing on what they want around their new school, and then it will proceed from there. So if you hear of anybody that's interested in property at that campus, they can contact my office, and we're keeping a long-running list of folks who are interested in addition to what parcels that they're interested in. Are there any questions on that part? Okay. Another thing that we're working on is, and thanks to Jack for his help with this, we're working on identifying owners of the vacant buildings in what I'll call downtown Vienna. We had a really good conversation with one property owner that is interested in rehabbing a building if and when interest rates come down a bit. So that seems to be the going trend for housing, for commercial. During COVID, as we all know, interest rates were 2.5%, and now they're 8-9%, and building materials are more expensive. So people are kind of waiting to see what goes on there. But we are having those conversations. I think that they are going well. I think it's making progress, so we're happy about that. Wanted to give an update on the 25 federal earmark. So I applied for 2 federal earmarks. One was for the city of Vienna for the John Mansville property. They were both forwarded on to the Appropriations Committee. We have not received an update on where those currently sit, so I wanted to let you know that it's kind of still in limbo out there. I go back to my earlier comment that it's a slow-moving pace, but we'll get there eventually. And the good news with those programs is once awarded, you have about 6 years to allot and spend the money. So and I will say I'm working on one from fiscal year 22, and we're going into 25, and it does take that much time. So we will get there. And the last thing I wanted to talk about tonight is the Spencer's Landing Steering Committee. So as part of, I'm a member of that steering committee. I was on the RFQ committee as well. Thrasher has sent out a draft for the survey. And coming from an economic development perspective, I think it was a really well done survey. I think it will give the citizens of Vienna an opportunity to have any question that they had answered and make comments. So they're formally finishing that up now, and then I look forward to helping spread the word about that survey. So, but I do think if it's of concern to people, they really did take into consideration all of the questions and comments and concerns, and it is shown in that survey.
Questions from council?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you go into a little bit more detail about the federal earmark for John Mansville?
So federal earmarks, for those of you who are not aware, when we applied, I'll go back to 22 when I applied for the first one. There are no rules to what you can apply for in a federal earmark per se. You apply, there's various programs throughout the federal government. Ours have all been through HUD for economic development projects. They're congressionally funded projects is what they're called. I submitted the earmark for Johns Manville to specifically clean up the concrete ledge that drops off. So I applied for $1 million for the federal earmark. And like I said, that would go in, and I don't know how they would have you do it with the rebar and jackhammering, but it would basically get it so it was a level piece of property and you didn't have that drop off. And ideally, you wouldn't have to have that fence around it anymore because of that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So they have a machine, which is right here in town. And you take the concrete with the rebar, it chews the concrete up and separates the rebar out.
Nice.
So get our money and we'll start tomorrow.
All right.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll hear back from them soon.
All right. Any other questions? Lindsay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know you usually say this at the economic development meetings. There are other things that are working that you're just not at liberty to talk about.
100%.
There you go.
So, but I look forward to next time I'm here, maybe sharing more. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item on our agenda this evening is a resolution for the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. Tony Tiano, would you give us the groundwork, please? For all of you that aren't aware, Tony Tiano is our grant writer that deals with most of our CDBG projects. And she's fantastic. Thank you, Professor.
Well, thank you. Won't argue with you there. Before you tonight is the CAPER, which is the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report. It's for the city's Community Development Block Grant Program that just ended. I shouldn't say just, it ended June 30th, 2024. During that time period, a total of $96,854.03 was spent out of our award of $103,652. So we spent 93%. During that time period, we did 9 homes, rehabbed. Our goal was to do 10. Technically, we met it because we started the 10th one at the end of June. So we did do it the project was not completed within the time period, but we did start it. So you can say we were 100% complete. During the last 5 years, the city had a goal to do 50 homes. We did 48. So we're close to meeting our goals. Right now, we're waiting for our federal award to begin the program for this upcoming year. And yes, it is a very slow process. So hopefully we will get it soon and we can get started. Any questions?
And we have done all the...
We've done all the necessary public hearings and all the legal notices, etc.
All right. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that the attached Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, commonly known as the CAPER, for the city's Community Development Block Grant Program for the period of July 1, 2023 to June 30th, that would be July 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2025, be approved as attached. This document is being adopted following the completion of the necessary public notices and public hearings. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution approving the CAPER. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I know this is fascinating for you and Lindsay, but I know you both have a lot to do during the day. If you want to be excused, please go home to your family, okay? Next item on our agenda this evening is a bid approval for the prefabricated restroom installation for McDonough Park. Councilman Leach.
Sealed bids for the cost and installation of a prefabricated restroom for the McDonough Park were opened on Tuesday, August 27, 2024 at 10 a.m. with the following results. Jimmy Harper Construction, the amount of $275,392.80. After careful review of the bid proposals, the recommendation for council approval from the Budget and Finance Committee for the cost and installation of a prefabricated restroom for McDonough Park is Jimmy Harper Construction, the amount of $275,392. And I'll just close my screen. Funding for this project is out of account 540-6558, but is pending a future budget revision and, of course, discussion today.
So before I open the discussion for that, there's a few things that we need to put out there. In this year's budget, I believe there was $177,000 set aside for the replacement of that restroom facility. This bid here is almost $100,000 over what was suggested. In our discussions with budget and finance, we decided that we would refer this to council because, one, it has to have a budget revision in the amount of almost $100,000 to fund this. The second thing is Steve Black, Parks Director, and Craig Metz, Public Works Director, and I all went up there and looked at that facility. It's our belief that that facility can be rehabilitated. The bones, so to speak, of that building are good. It needs to be upgraded for handicap accessibility. The exterior needs some sprucing up. And that building has a really unique problem attached to it that is not covered by this bid. The electrical service that comes into that building controls all the lighting for all of the park and the parking lots and everything, not just specifically the restroom facility itself. That conversion of that electrical system would be extremely expensive. And so it is my opinion that we do not accept the bid tonight for this, and we go out again for bids to see what it would cost to rehabilitate that building, installing new handicap accessibility, the stalls be completely reworked with handicap accessible, stalls and equipment. And so those are the things that I think that council needs to take into consideration this evening. The facility that we actually went out to bid on is beautiful. Really, really nice stone exterior. The whole, it would be a really good fit for McDonough. But the extra money, the unknown cost of converting the electricity over is going to really make this project more expensive than I think that we want to take on. But we wanted to leave it up to council for that decision. And so, Mrs. Elam, Mr. Leach, you're chairman of the Finance Committee. Any other comments?
No, I think that was it. Budget and Finance did also, talked with Craig in the investigation there, and it's just cost prohibitive. I mean, that's too much money for what it would be. Notwithstanding, it'd be a beautiful, facility. As I understand, this would be two prefabricated concrete components that would have to be brought in, which would be a challenge in and of itself. So, yeah, I think we need to look for another alternative.
Mrs. Elam?
Same. I mean, we were all in agreement on needing to go a different direction, but we knew that we needed to bring it here for the final decision.
Mr. Metz, I know that you've looked the facility over, and Steve, I know that you as well. The rehab of that building is very possible, correct?
Yeah, it is, and Steve and I both, like I said, both looked at it, and you got to rehab the inside and make the handicap accessible, put the stalls in, railing, like that. Put new ceiling in, put the exterior sheeting on, maybe possible, Steve and I talked, maybe some exterior log structures on the outside, make it look like the rest of the buildings up there, and do additional plumbing and do the outside drainage system.
Steve, that is the existing, that was the original restroom facility from when McDonough Park is built, isn't it?
It was, and I don't know what year that was.
Jack, you're the McDonough.
About 1984, 85, right in there.
Wow, so it's about 40 years old. It's still not in bad shape, but it's dated and the concrete needs reworked. But at any rate, okay, all right, thank you. With that, I will entertain a motion for the approval. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the seal bid for the cost and installation of a prefabricated restroom for McDonough Park in the amount of $275,392.80 from Jimmy Harper Construction. Hearing no motion, then this is dead. We will put it back to the finance department and have them rebid this project for a rebuild. Thank you all. Next item on our agenda this evening is a bid approval for playground obstacle course and safety surface installation. Councilman Leach.
Sealed bids for the cost and installation of playground obstacle course and safety surface were opened on Tuesday, August 27th, 2024, at 10:30 a.m. with the following results. Davis Athletics, $95,000. After careful review of the bid proposals, the recommendation for council approval from the Budget Finance Committee for the cost and installation of a playground obstacle course and safety services, Davis Athletics, $95,000. Funding for this project was budgeted in the city's general fund, account number 540-6558, but is pending, internal budget revision number 1.
Mr. Skogstad is going to put a picture up on that. The amount of $95,000 was $20,000 more than what the estimate was from Mr. Black. Mr. Black, when we get down to budget revision number 1, is wanting to transfer $20,000 out of his materials and supplies line item to cover the additional $20,000 for this project. If you all are fans of American Ninja Warriors, this would be a very similar yet lower standard piece of equipment where the kids could go up there and climb things, do ropes, do all of the things that you see on American Ninja Warriors. Am I saying that correctly, Steve?
There's 7 different pieces.
Okay, and the surface that would be underneath of it is?
The safety surface is the same as the climbing structure we have over there called the Beehive. It was highly recommended, not mulch, definitely not concrete or dirt, but it's a safety issue. So yes, that's included in the bid package, which I did send to 4 companies.
All right. So I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the sealed bids for the cost and installation of a playground obstacle course and safety surface from Davis Athletics in the amount of $95,000. This is pending internal budget revision number 1 for the transfer of the additional $20,000 and does include the obstacle course and the safety surface.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the bid from Davis Athletics for $95,000. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the sealed bid for the cost and installation from Davis Athletics in the amount of $95,000, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next item on our agenda this evening is a purchase of 2 new or used vehicles to be used in the police department. Councilman Leach.
Sealed bids for the purchase of 2 new or used vehicles to be used in the police department were opened at 10 a.m. on Monday, September 9th, 2024, with the following results. Warner Kia, 2024 Kia Sportage, $30,877.25. 2024 Kia Sportage, $30,464.25. Excuse me. Astor Auto, 2024 Hyundai Tucson SE, $29,975.25. 2024 Hyundai Tucson SE, $30,386. After careful review of the bid proposals, the recommendation for council approval from the Budget and Finance Committee for the purchase of 2 new or used vehicles for use in the police department is Astor Auto for the 2024 Hyundai Tucson SE in the amount of $29,975.25. On the same vehicle at the bid of $30,386. Funding for the project is currently from the City of Vienna Opioid Settlement Fund.
Chief Powell.
Yes, sir.
These vehicles that we're being quoted this evening are not your typical police cruisers.
That's correct.
Would you please tell us what you're going to use these 2 vehicles for, sir?
These will be for the Detective Bureau, for the 2 detectives. Currently, they're driving old cruisers, and basically we took the striping and stuff off of, and that's what they've been driving.
Would you mind going to the podium? I apologize. We're going to keep you there for a while. Mr. Skogstad's going to cross-examine you when we get done.
Yeah, I've got some questions.
So as I was saying,
Wait a minute, I got your back.
So when I first started, there was one detective vehicle, and it was Malibu. It was a 2005 Malibu, and we had that for a long time. The detective vehicles, they'll last 12, 13 years pretty easily with the detectives, maybe more. When we put the bids out, we put them out multiple times now. I went from dealership to dealership trying to get bids. The third time I think we had it out. I don't think the bid specs were very difficult. It was anything newer than a 2021, less than 25,000 miles, 4-cylinder, automatic transmission. So we didn't make it real difficult. And we weren't getting bids for some reason. This last time we happened to get 2 bids. But as I was saying, the detectives, one of them's driving a 2011 Charger, which was a police cruiser for years. I know a lot of people like to talk about miles, but we need to start thinking about hours and stuff. And these newer cars have hour meters on them, and that's what we're starting to look at instead of miles. Because in Vienna, it's a smaller city. The guys drive the side roads a lot, so you're not putting a lot of miles on our vehicles. But our hours of idle time when you're sitting on the side of the road and stuff, that's what's hurting us the most. And we got a couple cars that's just broke down right now with motor problems, and we just got different things. So we're not going to have hand-me-downs for these detectives, even though we got our new cruisers coming. We know that we need those for backup cruisers when ours are in the the facilities getting some maintenance done. So as I was saying, he's driving a 2011 Charger, and the other one's driving a 2013 Jeep Cherokee. And we don't really have a vehicle right now for our civilian detective who drives back and forth to Charleston to take evidence and stuff back and forth. He's currently driving the task force vehicle, which is a 2016 Sierra with 120, well, it was 125,000 a few months ago. So it's probably in the 130s now, but 130 is not bad for, a car. I'm not complaining about that, but we have a lot of hours where we sit on the side of the road and stuff like that with the cars for hours at a time. So.
All right, sir, so we'll continue with this. Earlier in the remarks that Tony Morrison made about the issues that are going on in our school, you and Officer Harris and Officer Jones and some other folks from the city all had a meeting discussing the pathway forward with the opioid funds and the grant opportunities that are available. Tony Tiano was also part of that discussion. I know that in this document that it says that the city of Vienna will pay for these out of the opioid settlement fund. Previously, council approved the purchase of 2 vehicles from the opioid settlement fund. My recommendation is that we not take the money out of the opioid money, that we do this through our general fund. I've spoken with our finance director. That is not an issue. What it would take is a budget revision. We want you to have the cars. We know that you have to have the cars, but we would like to sit on that opioid money. We have approximately $180,000 left in that account, and we're trying to work with the resource officers and you to develop a program at Jackson Middle School for all of the things that the kids have to deal with and the suggestions that our officers are making. I think it's very encouraging that they're reaching out to the students to poll them to see what they think would have the most bang for the buck as far as a program. Your thoughts?
That's correct. They was going to poll them today, but the network was down that the kids normally use for their apps and things like that. So he's going to do that tomorrow morning. But as far as a facility or something like that for the school students and stuff, I hear Mr. Morrison talk about it a lot for the kids, and other people talk about care for our children, and it's tough for the parents to pick them up from school and things. So that's kind of the thoughts and things that we were talking about, using some of that opioid money and maybe some grant money towards where the city puts some money towards it with the grants and the opioid, and that leaves us some money to build some kind of youth center that would be for the kids to go to after school to start out and see how much more time we can start doing with a youth center. But that gives the parents a chance, if it's open from, 3:30 to 6 o'clock, those parents that can't get there right away after school, that gives them kids someplace to go and hang out with other kids. And that's why we want their ideas on what would you want from this youth center? What do you want to do there? So that'll give us an idea of what do we need to build.
Okay. Mr. Skogstad, you look like you're puzzled, sir.
Well, no, Chief, as far as the vehicles go, and we had a very serious case in the last 6 weeks or so that required the detectives to go well out of county in order to facilitate and continue their investigation. The vehicles that you're asking council to purchase, you would agree with me that the officers need reliable vehicles to sometimes go far away.
Sure.
To do things. Would these vehicles would they be used in instances like that by the detectives as opposed to a 13-year-old Charger and a 10-year-old Silverado?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And of course, the detective, the civilian detective we have that goes to Charleston, he can always use one of those newer vehicles to get back and forth to Charleston.
It's interesting that, the Kia Sportage and the Hyundai Tucson, typically we buy, Ford Explorers, Dodge Challengers, what have you. Mr. Black has been driving a Kia Sportage for a year, Steve? 3 years, okay. Anyway, it's been a pretty reliable vehicle, hasn't it? So I don't believe we would have that issues based on, the usage that would be there. We're not going to chase people down normally.
Correct.
These are transportation vehicles.
With the vehicles for detectives, it's in our policy. They're not in pursuit. They don't pursue cars. As most of you have probably seen some TikToks from other places in West Virginia, when you do that kind of stuff, we got one police department that's been shut down. And it was a one officer department, but it was shut down for that very reason. Unmarked cars, T-shirt, and a gun. And that was the way he was representing himself.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Leach, you're chairman of the Finance Committee. I would like to throw this back to you to either restate the funding avenue for this, or we can do it as an amendment, whichever you care.
I think as long as we're within our purview to do so, that I would move to amend the funding for the project from the City of Vienna Opioid Settlement Fund to a budget revision from the general fund to fund the purchase from the recommended bid from Astorg Auto for the 2 Hyundais.
All right. Mr. Skogstad, you bless that?
Yes, I think that's fine.
Thank you, sir. All right, so I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the sealed bid for the purchase of a 2024 Hyundai Tucson SE in the amount of $29,975.25 and a 2024 Hyundai Tucson SE in the amount of $30,386. Funding for these vehicles will fund the City of Vienna's general fund with a budget revision. Is there any further discussion? Oh, we got to make a motion. I'm sorry.
Jim made the motion.
Jim made a motion
Jim did
to
make the
amend it.
motion. Second.
You seconded it?
No, ma'am.
Oh, I'll second.
You did. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the low bid from Astorg Auto for the purchase of two new vehicles. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question. I mean, I support this, that's not the issue, and I'm very encouraged to see that we're not going to use the opioid settlement money for this. But my question is, why don't we use the asset forfeiture fund that has $66,081 in it? That would, if we purchase both vehicles, a little over $60,000, would still be about, I don't know, $5,700 or so left in asset forfeiture. Then we don't have to take the money of our general fund budget, and then we are protecting the money in the opioid settlement fund until, we can have conversations about how best to spend that money.
I'll give you my opinion on that. We have $10,139,665 in our general fund capital reserve. We can certainly afford to pay the approximately $60,000 for these two automobiles rather than deplete his entire asset forfeiture account. They use that money for various projects, and so the $60,000 would not be a huge hit
Well, I understand what you're saying, and that's why I went back to look about how the asset forfeiture fund, and it's up just slightly from where it was this time last year. So, I mean, I'm certainly not aware of the things that you may use that fund for, but once again, if we use the asset forfeiture fund to purchase these vehicles, and then you need something down the road, and there's not enough money in that fund, I can't see a situation where council would not give you money out of the general fund budget.
The only thing that I have planned right now for it, if we don't get a grant, which Tony's working on right now for us, is probably, we need some helmets and stuff for the SWAT team, which is going to be about $10,000 in that ballpark. We'll start. I'm currently sending the K-9 officer down to the task force. So this task force vehicle that I just spoke about, this 2016 vehicle that we're currently using as a task force, where we're using this task force vehicle, but now one of the detectives is using it. If I do have an unmarked person or a undercover person go back down to the task force versus the K-9, then we'll be buying a car, and I'll either be coming to the council for that, or that will come out of that budget.
Well, Chief, let me ask you, this, because, what Councilperson Williams is suggesting would require coming to council, getting a budget revision, something in that. So can you give us some examples? You mentioned that, but, 66,000, you mentioned some training and so forth. What types of activities do you use the asset forfeiture fund to do, and how important is it for you to have those funds sometimes immediately available?
Well, it's more of an emergency type fund for us right now. I mean, as far as equipment for SWAT guys, that's what it's used for a lot. We used it for they call them Giotto. There's some specialty seats that we wanted for our new cruisers that was not in the budget. We didn't budget that for our cars. Basically, the way a normal seat is, you got your crack in here behind the prisoner. We've had them jamming needles down in there, jamming fentanyl and stuff down in there. So these new seats systems are about $2,000, $1,800 a seat system. So we use that money to revise our newer cars and go ahead and put those in our newer cars. We don't blow that money at all. We're real kind of stingy with that in a way, that where we only use it for emergency type situations, so that we really need to use them as a police department. When Chief Pfeiffer was leaving, he said, make sure that stays there for emergencies. We could have whittled it away with, buying a couple cars or something, or buying a new task force car every few years or something, and whittled that away. But that's slowly but surely over a lot of years been built up to that for an emergency situation. But we have to use it. We have to use it. I mean, we'll do what we got to do to get these two cars. We're going to need them.
Any further comments?
Just a quick comment. I appreciate that we're not using the opioid settlement fund money, as Ms. Williams said. I do think we still need to have some kind of a conversation about that, a bigger conversation. I know we talked about that several months ago, and I think it would be appropriate for us to still try to plan to have that in the future.
The discussion on the opioid funds?
Yeah.
As soon as Chief Powell and the two resource officers gather the data, we will try to get together and have a discussion about what options there are and their recommendations to go. I think if we dedicate those funds to protecting our youth, I can't imagine anything better. It's always been said to me that if you can't reach the kids by the time they leave middle school, you're never going to reach them. And so I have a lot of faith in Adam Jones, and Anthony Harris is very well organized. And so, and I know the chief's on board. He's very intertwined with the youth. So we will do that. All right, we'll do it here on council, where we'll bring him in. All right? Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. If there's no further discussion, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the low bid from Astor Auto for a 2024 Hyundai Tucson SE and a 2024 Hyundai Tucson SE to be purchased through the City of Vienna's general fund, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next item on our agenda this evening is a general fund budget revision number 2. Councilman Leach, wearing you out tonight, Jim.
Yeah, no doubt. 2024-25 general fund budget revision number 2, account number 322. This is a transfer from other funds transfer in from capital reserve. The current budget, $718,367,000. Proposed increase of $300,000 to a revised budget of $1,018,367. And the purpose of the capital outlay other is for additional street paving as being requested by Public Works.
We've had a very successful year in paving. I'll tell you what, Craig, if you would.
You showed up.
Yeah, you want your map? You want, I mean,
I've never seen your
I
map
knew you would
before,
have a map.
yeah.
Okay? Ah. So we've had a very successful year in paving. Unfortunately, we have spent all the money that we allocated for paving projects. And Mr. Metz has looked at the map that he projected earlier and feels like we could use some additional funds to complete these projects before the paving season is over. Would you please?
Yeah, there's several projects, different areas I'd like to continue paving, and the contractors, I think, has done a great job this year. If y'all have looked at the roads, I think they've done a nice job. They've moved out now, but they are willing to come back and continue with the work. There's also some areas that, say, like Rivercrest, or some concrete sections there that are going to need replaced. I haven't decided if I'm going to do the concrete or actually pave that subdivision. But I'd like to continue on paving, example, 16th Avenue off of 23rd Street, which ties back into the paving we did in Woodland. And then the lower section of town, 14th Avenue and 10th Street in them areas. So I'm requesting an additional $300,000. Right now we have I'm left with $128,000 left in this year's budget. So that's about a road and a half, but okay. So
Right now, there is an incredible amount of road construction going on in the city of Vienna.
This looks great.
Between the gas company on Grand Central Avenue and the state on almost every corner on 33rd, 34th, 46th. I mean, we've got an incredible amount, plus the streetscape project, is pretty much finished now, but the curbing needs to be redone. We've had a lot of construction work in the city. To continue to get your work finished, I think would really, do a good job.
Yeah. We also have a curb we still got to install around the pool. We had some water runoff issues up there, so I'd like to get that curb installed. So,
okay.
So if you'd be kind enough to give me the money, I'd appreciate it. Pardon?
You've really had the weather this year, too.
Yeah, it's been great. So I'd love to have done some additional work in Pond Run or the dry dams. We keep talking about that, get them done also, but that's future. So a lot of future projects coming. So.
Stay right there. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of general fund budget revision number 2 to transfer from capital reserve in the amount of $300,000 to the street department for additional street paving.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve general fund budget revision number 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the approval of general fund budget revision number 2, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Craig, I think we're done. Is that it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Next item on our agenda this evening is a internal budget revision number 1. Mr. Leach.
This is internal budget revision number 1 that was just discussed for the shortfall for the obstacle course and safety service. This is the Parks Department. It wants to transfer out of 54041 materials and supplies, wants to move money from that to capital outlay to cover the additional cost of playground obstacle course and safety surface. Budget before change, $85,000, deduct $20,000, new amount $65,000, increase 54058, currently $166,500, increased by $20,000 to a new total of $186,500. And this does not require state approval, as this is from within the same account category.
And there is no additional money. This is simply a line item transfer from materials and supplies to capital outlay. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of internal budget revision number 1, transferring $20,000 between line items for the Parks Department.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the internal budget revision. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of internal budget revision number 1, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Steve, when can we expect that to be delivered?
Find out tomorrow.
Okay, all right, thank you. Item number 8 this evening on our agenda is a resolution declaring a City of Vienna council member position vacant. The resolution declaring a City of Vienna council member position vacant, be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that the office of council member held by the Honorable Roger D. Bibby is declared vacant upon his passing September the 6th, 2024. Any comments, Madam Recorder?
No, this is the simple.
Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution declaring a city council member position vacant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution declaring a City of Vienna council member position vacant. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the resolution, please signify by raising your right hand. Jim, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Yes, sir. All right. All those in favor, 6-0, unanimous. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this evening is a resolution setting forth the process for selecting a temporary city and council member. Unfortunately, we just went through this in the last few weeks, and so it is basically exactly the same resolution, with the exception being that the dates have all been moved around. And so would you or Mr. Skogstad like to explain this, or I can have Russ read it if you care to.
This is a resolution setting forth the process for selecting a temporarily sitting council member, be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna as follows. 1, the City of Vienna on December 16th, 2021, adopted a procedure for selecting temporary replacement council members. 2, a council member position was declared vacant by majority vote of council at a regularly scheduled noticed council meeting on September 12, 2024. 3, the City of Vienna hereby solicits applications for the position of council member. This position is to temporarily fill the unexpired term of the open council position until his or her successor is elected and qualified. The general election is set November 5th, 2024. Applications submitted in person must be submitted to the office of the mayor Monday through Friday during regular business hours, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., beginning at 8 o'clock a.m. September 13, 2024, and ending at 4 p.m. September 26, 2024. Number 5, any applications submitted by U.S. mail must be received by the office of the mayor no earlier than September 13, 2024, no later than September 26, 2024, or if by private courier, marked as delivered no earlier than September 13, 2024, and no later than September 26, 2024. 6, any applications submitted outside of those dates will not be considered. 7, all prospective candidates must be residents of the City of Vienna and must be qualified voters entitled to vote for members of the city's governing body. Municipal Code 103.04. Number 8, all prospective candidates shall file a certificate of candidacy declaring him or herself to be a candidate as set out in Vienna Municipal Code 103.03, paragraph A and B. 9, any filing fees for the temporary council member candidate are waived. 10, interviews of prospective council members shall be held at the regular council meeting scheduled for September 26, 2024 at the Vienna City Council Chambers, 609 29th Street, Vienna, West Virginia. 11, interviews of prospective candidates will be conducted in an open meeting. 12, each candidate shall be interviewed individually and outside of the presence of the other candidates. Prospective candidates are expected to refrain from viewing any live stream of other candidates' interviews. 13, at the conclusion of all the interviews, council may enter executive session to deliberate. Upon returning from executive session, council shall nominate and vote on one candidate to be temporarily appointed to the vacant seat. 14, current candidates and write-in candidates for elected office will not be considered.
All right. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution setting forth a process for selecting a temporarily sitting council member.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the resolution setting forth a process for selecting a temporarily sitting council member, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next council meeting will be on September the 26th. We will do this during the course of the council meeting. I would like to make note that at the beginning of the next meeting that Jeff Sandy from the governor's office, in conjunction with the Marine Corps League and other dignitaries, will be here at council to present flags to the Azinger family. And so we're going to do that first. And so we will deal with the interviews and all that after we have concluded the special ceremony that they want to do for former council member Tom Azinger.
Can I also say, the certificates of announcement will be at the front desk tomorrow, so anybody interested can stop by and pick one of those up, get it filled out, notarized, and returned back here to the city building.
Okay. All right, the last item on our agenda this evening is a reports from standing boards and committees. So I guess I would like to update you all on the current status of the new elementary school. We are working through the paperwork to find a pathway to get that done. They still have a very aggressive schedule of when they would like to start. There was an issue in the deed. It's called a land and water grant. 45 years ago, the city of Vienna received a land and water grant for the construction of a bathroom in Jackson Park. That bathroom is still over there. It's the small one that's above the baseball fields. That language in there is a problem because it designates that that area must be used for recreation in perpetuity, which means forever. So we reached out to the Department of Interior asking for a waiver to designate the new school as a recreational facility because it has a outside walking track, it has two playgrounds, and it also has a gymnasium that will be used by the public for various rec programs and outside activities. I've gotten word back from the Department of Energy, which is a division of the Department of Interior, stating that due to federal law that cannot happen, that we are now challenged with finding other avenues to allow that land and water grant to be satisfied by an additional piece of property that is not designated as recreation. And so we are working to find a appraiser that is qualified to do the appraisal of the 11 acres where the school will sit. And then we will find something that we can trade that land and water grant area for. And so we are working diligently to get that done as quickly as possible. We have several options that are being considered. Ultimately, it will be council's decision of what avenue we take in order to satisfy that land and water grant. We've gotten considerable cooperation from Senator Manchin's office in Washington, and we've also been working with the folks in Charleston who have been through this process a lot. Fred Rader, who used to be with the Mid-Ohio Valley Regional Council, has also been very informative because he's been through that process numerous times to get over this obstacle. So that's where we stand with the Board of Education. They're waiting on us to get our part of this done, and then we will move forward.
And the only thing, if I'm not speaking out of turn, that I'd like to clarify is we're not looking to burden another 11 acres in the city with a requirement. We're not looking to swap land. there's a restriction on that property, on the 11 acres, that says that you have to use it for recreational purposes. We're just simply trying to find a parcel of equivalent value, not size, but of equivalent value that is acceptable to the department to move that restriction to. We don't want to lose acreage.
Correct.
Yeah. So the idea is not to give up acreage and not to buy property of the same acreage, but to find something that can be used for a recreational purpose, regardless of size, as long as it's of equivalent value, to put that burden or that restriction on. So I just wanted to clarify. I didn't want people to think that we're trying to trade 11 acres for 11 acres.
We are not. And Mr. Skogstad, you know, obviously is our legal representative, and so he's been involved in all of this, and we will, as soon as we can get the appraisal done, then we will make a recommendation on what they will accept. All right? All right. If there are no other reports this evening, then we will move on to council comments. Before we start council comments, Mrs. Mitchell, you asked to make a comment earlier, and I could not allow you to interrupt the agenda. If you would like to say something, now is your time, ma'am.
I was going to say, I will, for Mr. Bibby and Mr. Azinger, I will make 2 applicants and donate it to whatever the fire department or council or the chief, police chief, for a child to have that's sick, like with cancer. They can have it. It's free, it's clear, the family or anybody here does not have to pay for the yarn. I will do that willingly as a part of Spirit of Love, because I know everybody loves Mr. Bibby and Mr. Azinger.
I know that your son was a firefighter for many years, and it's a nice gesture on your part if you would just, you know, you can make the decision, but I know the fire department would be happy to have that. I also know that the chief can, you know, he can certainly find good use for those. And anyone that knew Roger Bibby knew what a fine human being he was. He was a great firefighter for almost 50 years, but, you know, you wouldn't find a better father. He loved his boys, and Roger was just he was just one of those guys for, I don't know how many years, many, many years. It was my pleasure to present the Firefighter of the Year award with Roger. And so, you know, he loved the fire department. I mean, and he was extremely knowledgeable. Even though he was a senior member, he still stayed active. He knew lots of the current issues and what have you. And as far as the fire department goes, I know you all miss him, Tim. And as far as council goes, anything that came up that had, you know, anything to do with public safety, the fire department, I mean, Roger was right there. So he was a great asset. But at any rate, Mrs. Mitchell, thank you very much. All right. Council comments this evening. All right. Please don't forget the 26th. It will be a special evening for Mr. Azinger, and we will interview our candidate, and we'll fill our seat and be back to 100%. All right. Tony, thank you for all your work on the grants and our caper. And once we get it signed, we will put a copy of it down at the library in the repository so that anyone can see it. Okay?